What's up, everybody? How the hell's your day going? I hope y'all having a pretty good day. This here is Legitical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed on exactly what the government is doing at any and all times, by the way. So if you're interested in that, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button for me and turn on your notifications because it helps. And if you also could, before we get started, do me a big favor and look right below the video and smash that like button for me. It is a very big help and I would be greatly appreciative. It helps with the algorithm. It helps promote the channel. It helps the channel to prosper. So I would be deeply thankful if y'all could smash that like button. But as we all know, social media is kind of untamed territory. I mean, we've had it around for a little while, but, you know, they're just starting to put laws into place pertaining to social media, and it can get kind of crazy on social media. In case you do not stay online a lot, yeah, social media is a wild place. It's like the wild, wild west, you could say, in some instances. But we've known that over the past few years, there has been a major bias against right-wing personalities. There was a study done. I say a study done, but somebody actually took everybody that was banned and posts that were deleted and looked up their political leanings and found that the vast majority of the people that were banned outright or had their posts deleted were mostly right-wing, and the posts that did not violate, you know, content guidelines or whatever were mostly right-wing. I should put it that way. They differentiated between, you know, stuff like hate speech and this, you know, some stuff was labeled hate speech and it wasn't hate speech. It was a whole deal I watched. I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. But we've got a news article coming up and we're talking about this. So this one's going to get kind of bumpy. Let's go ahead and check it out, y'all. Supreme Court grapples with social media platforms' First Amendment protections in moderating the digital public square. Yeah, so apparently Texas and Florida passed a couple of laws basically telling the social media platforms that they cannot moderate certain content, like content from political candidates, politicians, stuff like that. They can't moderate that. They can't take somebody's speech down just because it's political. It's quite extensive and it covers a lot. And so now, you know, of course, the social media companies sued, and it's being heard in the Supreme Court, and they're actually trying to work through all this. And it is a big muck. And it's a situation, like, you hear the arguments, and you're like, you know, you don't want people getting silenced online. You know, people want their voices to be heard. But these companies, these social media platforms, are private companies. So it's like, you know, do you stand with liberty or do you stand with liberty? It's a confusing one, and I don't know where I fall on this one, to be honest with you guys. But let's get into it. Supreme Court justices have been grappling all morning on the question of whether social media platforms are neutral gatekeepers or whether their content moderation practices count as expressive activity protected by the First Amendment. The justices raised a series of questions over the broadness of the Florida law, which restricts the content moderation practices of tech platforms. Some of the justices were skeptical of the law when it came to content decisions, but also wondered why it should not apply to the activity of Etsy or Uber. Paul Clement, attorney representing the industry group NetChoice, offered the court a prediction of what will happen if the Florida law were allowed to stand. Yeah, get this one. This story, okay, I had to go read this exact same story from several different news organizations. I got a left-leaning, a center-leaning, which is this one, and then I got a right-leaning. And I read them all because I wanted to learn a little bit more about this story before I came out here to talk about it. And the right-leaning story had a whole bunch of stuff that the left left out. Like, the justices were basically laughing some of these people out of the courtroom because of some of their arguments. They were kind of ridiculous, from my opinion. The left-leaning news article didn't mention that at all, didn't mention the arguments. It was a very, very short article also, I noticed. So you got to watch where you get your news from. Most of the news I cover is either center-leaning or left-leaning because I love to counter the left-leaning stuff. But let's keep going. What some of these companies might do is say, let's just do puppy dogs in Florida, Clement said, suggesting that platforms would default to featuring only non-controversial content so no one can say we are not being consistent. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson asked Clement about concerns that social media platforms are now public square. Champions of the Florida and Texas law argue that Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter serve that function and therefore cannot discriminate in the type of content posted on their sites. Now, I would say definitely Twitter and definitely YouTube, but Facebook, not so much. I don't use Facebook. I'm not going to lie. I don't use Facebook at all. I don't have anything to say to people on Facebook. To me, I see Facebook as just an evolution of MySpace, where you can go and you keep up with friends, and I don't have any friends at all. So, there's no need for me to be on Facebook, really. So I don't use Facebook. But Twitter and YouTube, I would have to say that definitely Twitter. There's an argument to be made about YouTube, but definitely Twitter is the public square. You can go there and it's toxic at times, but hey, some people love that kind of stuff. But I would have to agree that at least Twitter and YouTube are definitely public square. Clement held to his argument that the First Amendment prohibits the government from restricting speech, which it does, not private entities, which that's kind of true. He said that censorship is only something that the government can do to you. That's not true. That is not true at all. Because these tech platforms can censor people. They can ban people for not even violating their guidelines, right? Now, we do know from the Twitter files and from all those government files that the Biden administration and the CIA and the FBI and all these groups were actually going to these tech platforms, writing emails saying, hey, can you go look at so-and-so's, post? You need to delete this post, or you need to ban this person. And conversations went back and forth about banning people, and pretty much these tech companies just said, okay, no problem, we'll do that. So technically, even though it's not direct government involvement, the government was censoring people, and that is the main reason these laws came into place. Now, what needs to be done is prevent the government from messing with the tech companies at all. Then you could say it's a private entity. But since we know that the government was actually, pushing these tech companies to censor people, yes, it is a government censorship program that was being ran. And we know this. The evidence is out there. But let's keep going. He also said that this is not a case where platforms had some bottleneck control distinguishing it from a Supreme Court ruling that required cable companies to carry broadcast channels. But there were some signals that the justices weren't ready to invalidate the entire law on First Amendment grounds. Justice Samuel Alito asked Clement, does Gmail have a First Amendment right to delete, let's say, Tucker Carlson or Rachel Maddow's Gmail accounts if they don't agree with his or her viewpoints? Clement said that they might be able to do that. Wait, they might be able to that. Yeah, there's some kind of typo here. I'm sorry, y'all. But said that it had not been the square focus of the litigation. Earlier in the morning, the justices pressed Henry Whitaker, Florida's Solicitor General, on the broad application of the law. This is so broad, it is covering almost everything, said Justice Sotomayor. Justice Brett Kavanaugh cited the Supreme Court's 1976 decision in Buckley versus Valeo, which struck down government limits on campaign expenditures. In doing so, he noted that the court rejected the concept that the government may restrict some speech in order to enhance others. Very interesting, that one. The Supreme Court this morning is hearing oral arguments in 2 cases that could shape the future of social media platforms. Justices are weighing the constitutionality of Florida and Texas laws that place restrictions on how Facebook, X, Instagram, and other social media platforms moderate their content. The laws championed by the right-leaning state lawmakers are rooted in the idea that tech platforms have had a bias against conservatives. This is true. We know this. The government was behind most of that. They've long lambasted social media practices that limited the reach of certain accounts, while tech companies have denied that they are discriminating against certain types of political speech. They can deny it all they want. The proof is there. Meta, Google, and other tech giants, which have restricted accounts that traffic in misinformation on COVID-19 and election integrity, as well as hate speech, say that the laws violate the First Amendment. Now, what that is trying to say is they are trying to say that these companies basically censoring people is violating the First Amendment of the company. You know, the laws not allowing them to censor people on their platforms violates the First Amendment. They're trying to use, it's really funny here, and, you know, correct me if my logic is flawed here. Let me know down in the comments, but that's backwards. The First Amendment is freedom of expression. Now, I do understand that, you know, these companies want to express maybe a certain viewpoint, but how about you put in some sort of a disclaimer saying that, you know, all opinions that you may see on this platform may not reflect the company's opinions on whatever. You know, why not do something like that and then let people just say whatever they want to, you know, given it doesn't violate the guidelines. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about speech and stuff people post that fall within the guidelines that are getting discriminated against, censored, shut down, deleted, whatever. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about stuff that goes outside of the guidelines. Like, you know, like they say, hate speech. You know, misinformation be damned, or whatever. But they're basically arguing that their right to delete people's posts and shut these people up should be held up as a First Amendment protection. I'm not sure if I can agree with that. I know that's kind of like, yeah, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. Because, you know, sure, it's expressing their viewpoint. But technically, if you got somewhere like X, right? You're putting out individual opinions, right? You get this person that says this. That has nothing to do with the platform itself. But, you know, I understand most of this, to be honest with you, comes from a very ridiculous place. Is people that need to be sheltered, people that need to be coddled all the time. They see something they may find offensive, and so they get mad and start screaming about it. If we wouldn't have people, you know, snowflakes, if you will, these people might be able to get along in the world. You know, if you see something offensive, stop looking at it. You know, that would solve a lot of this problem. A lot of people getting censored. Just ignore it. Why the hell not? Why the hell are you trying to ruin it for half of the country? We'll put it that way. You're trying to ruin social media for half of the damn country because you find this offensive. You find that people like Donald Trump offensive. Oh, how can they like Donald Trump? I don't want them on this. You know, it's like, why? Why can't you let people be and just don't look at it? Logic, people. Come on now. The decision by Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to suspend Donald Trump's accounts after the January 6th attack on the Capitol gave fuel to the move to pass the state's laws. His accounts have since been restored. And I don't know if you guys know what Donald Trump got suspended from Facebook and Twitter for. Yeah, it was this.
It's a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great peace.
Yeah, for telling these people to go home. Because he didn't tell them just to leave outright, because he said, yeah, it's a terrible time, or, you know, whatever he said in the video. It's a hard time on everybody. They stole it from us. That's the reason he got banned from Twitter. It's outright ridiculous. You know, he's telling these people to go home, to be peaceful, and yet he's the orange man that's bad. I don't understand that whatsoever. You know, I'll be honest. Donald Trump didn't want those people to do that. Donald Trump is not an idiot. You know, he has a lot of flaws. I ain't gonna lie. He's a human just like me, just like you. Has a lot of flaws. Nobody's perfect. But come on now. The guy was president of the United States. Do you really think he wanted a group of dimwit nut jobs to run off up into the Capitol to try to stop the progress of certifying the election? Do you really believe that? Sorry. That's just a tough one. I can't buy that. And to be honest with you, from everything I've seen, from all the evidence laid out, you've been lied to if you believe that Donald Trump ordered those people to go into the Capitol, wanted those people to go into the Capitol, expected those people to go into the Capitol. I'm sorry. That's just not how things work. Just think about it like this. We all know what the end result of that was, and we don't have to look in hindsight to see the result of doing something like that beforehand would be, right? We can see that having a bunch of people storm the Capitol is not going to end well for anybody. So why would somebody want to do that? It makes no sense, especially since Trump had all these legal cases in court that he was trying to work out. Of course, some of the damn courts didn't even want to take up those cases, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. Let's keep going. I'm sorry, getting off on a rant. The Florida law prohibits platforms from banning or suspending the accounts of candidates for public office. It also prohibits the restriction of accounts engaged in journalistic enterprise. The Texas law prohibits social media platforms from taking down content that is based on a viewpoint. Wow, that one is broad. Both laws allow users to sue the platform for damages. They also require that platforms disclose their content moderation decisions. Wait a minute. Let me pose a question to you guys out there right quick. A little bit of criticism for this law. Let me know down in the comment section if you have a post or whatever, or you put up a video and it gets taken down because of whatever reason. If it doesn't violate the guidelines, how would you sue for damages from that? I could see maybe on YouTube suing for losses from if you're monetized. I can see that, but outside of that, I don't know. That seems like a very broad, very, very broad requirement of that law. Suing them for damages. Okay, whatever. The states have defended the laws, contending that the platforms are acting as a public square and should not be able to have ultimate authority to determine what users see and cannot see. Ultimately, the argument is that the platforms act as something akin to a utility, i.e. the phone company, which doesn't place restrictions on the content being transmitted over their lines. Trade groups for social media platforms, however, say that the laws infringe on the First Amendment rights to determine what should be allowed on their platforms. They warn that the situation is a little different from the government requiring a traditional media company like the New York Times or Fox News to distribute certain content. Joe Biden's administration filed a friend of the court brief siding with the tech companies. Of course he did, because they want to continue to persuade these companies to delete certain posts, to shut certain people down, because they've been doing that. That is a very, very handy tool of the Biden administration to shut down speech, to try to censor people. Yes, it is no surprise that the Biden administration is trying to side with the tech companies on this one. Wow. Like I said, Joe Biden has done so much to destroy this country. And he just keeps on doing it with stuff like this. It's like, I see what you're wanting to look like you're, defending free speech here. But, when people think about free speech, we think about people not being censored. We don't think about the ability to censor people as free speech. Yeah. No. Correct me if I'm wrong or if my logic is flawed on that one. Like I said earlier, a Florida federal appeals court concluded that the parts of the Florida law likely violated the First Amendment, conflicting with the ruling by a Texas panel. That set the case up for today's showdown in the Supreme Court. The Reporters Committee for the Freedom of the Press argued in a brief that in these cases, Texas and Florida would undermine the First Amendment safeguards for editorial independence to commandeer the audiences of a handful of large online platforms that, in their view, make unfair or unwise or even worse, biased judgments about the speech that deserves to be shared with their users. I would happen to agree with that. While the states have chosen to target certain new digital platforms today, they have yet to distinguish the expressive judgments their statutes target from the ones made daily by a litany of other speakers from the traditional press to Hollywood studios. Oh, that ended so nice, didn't it? But, I do understand that freedom of expression falls under freedom of speech. But, when you think about it like this, that, like me expressing my viewpoint, no, not even me, because I'm not all that extreme. I'm not extreme at all, as a matter of fact. Or at least I don't see myself that way. I don't believe I'm that extreme. I mean, sure, I support Donald Trump. I'm an extremist. But I understand the guy has flaws and, wish Vivek Ramaswamy wouldn't have dropped out. But let's even say you get a Klan member or something like that. That's an extremist. And somebody like that is going to say some offensive stuff. Why can't these social media platforms just view it as this doesn't pertain to us at all and let that guy say whatever the hell he wants to say? Why can't they, like I said earlier, just disclose that anybody and everybody's viewpoints don't necessarily reflect the company's viewpoints or political standing? Why can't they just do something like that? A quick disclaimer saying that, and then that relieves them of all flack that may come their way from somebody saying something on their platform that they don't like or they don't agree with. That's all I'm saying. Allow people to block certain types of content. Wouldn't that be just a great resolution to this problem? If you don't want to hear anything from right-wing individuals, have something in the algorithm that won't show you anything from right-wing individuals. How about that? I mean, let me know down in the comments if that would be a solution, a suitable solution to resolve this issue. I think it would be. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the Supreme Court, this whole ruling, and using freedom of speech to censor people. That makes no sense to me. But let me know what you think about it down in the comment section. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. I really do appreciate it, y'all. And y'all try to have a good day and be positive. Peace.